When the storm settles over a man's life, it is not his comforts that keep him steady, but his convictions. Hard times have a strange way of stripping us of the illusions we have built, exposing what is real and what is merely decoration. The soul, when pressed, reveals whether it has been resting upon sand or upon rock. When we speak of suffering, our first impulse is to recoil, as though it were an intruder breaking into the house of our lives. Yet there is something about pain that no comfort can teach us, and it is this: much of what we cling to is but a fragile illusion. We dress our days with adornments, wealth, recognition, pleasures, and plans, and imagine them to be foundations. But suffering has the peculiar honesty of tearing these garments away, until the soul must stand bare before the question of what is truly real. It is in such moments that we begin to perceive that what we called treasures may have been trinkets, and what we overlooked as ordinary may, in fact, be eternal. A man does not discover his anchor when the sea is calm. He only finds it when the winds howl and the waves beat against the vessel. In much the same way, suffering strips away the false securities of life and compels us to see where our faith, our trust, and our hope are actually placed. We may say we are strong, but the storm will test the claim. We may believe our happiness rests upon possessions, but their absence reveals how shallow such a root truly is. When all is shaken, only that which cannot be shaken remains, and it is there that the soul learns its first lesson in reality. There is also a strange mercy in this stripping away. For what greater tragedy could befall us than to live and die believing shadows to be substance? Pain shatters illusions, and though we protest at the breaking, the loss of what is false is no true loss at all. A person who has walked through the valley of grief or hardship knows that the applause of the world, the comfort of fleeting pleasures, and the security of plans were never the bedrock they promised to be, and so, with unwilling hands perhaps, we let them go. But what remains the love of God, the faithfulness of a friend, the courage to continue, is no longer obscured. Suffering also clarifies our desires. In ease, we hunger after many things, and our hearts scatter themselves over 1,000 distractions. But in pain, the heart grows singular in its cry. It longs not for what is shallow, but for what can sustain. The soul, pared down by loss, begins to crave truth, hope, and love with a purity it never knew before. In this way, suffering, though it wounds, also heals, for it teaches us to thirst for what is real. Consider the tree that grows in the open field. When storms beat upon it, the shallow roots are torn, but the deep roots are driven further still into the unseen soil. In the same way, hardship presses us downward into the depths of reality, teaching us to cling to what is unseen and eternal. If the storms had never come, the roots would remain shallow, and the tree would topple at the first great wind. But because the storm arrived, the tree endures. It is no small thing to suffer. The weight of sorrow or hardship cannot be dismissed by easy words. Yet it is also true that in the very weight we find an invitation, for in that heaviness we are compelled to ask, what truly matters? What cannot be taken away? The answers we discover are not always what we expected, but they are the very truths that make us unshakable. Thus, though suffering feels like the enemy, it is, in the end, a severe friend, leading us out of illusion and into the solid ground of reality. Hope is often mistaken for a kind of wishful thinking, as though it were merely the fragile dream of someone unwilling to face reality. Yet true hope is of a different kind altogether. It is not blind to the darkness, nor does it deny the weight of hardship. Rather, it is the quiet assurance that the darkness does not have the final word. It looks straight into the night and whispers, "There is a dawn yet to come." This is why hope cannot be extinguished by trial. It does not depend on circumstances, but on something beyond them. When a man has hope, he can walk through valleys where others collapse. not because his path is easier, but because he knows his suffering is not meaningless. Pain without hope feels like a locked door in a silent house, but pain with hope is more like a corridor. It may be narrow and difficult, yet it leads somewhere. To live without hope is to stumble in circles in the dark, but to live with hope is to walk forward, step by step, even when the end is unseen. It is this forward motion, this belief that the present difficulty is not the whole story, that allows the soul to thrive. Hope also draws its strength from what lies outside the self. If it were merely self-made optimism, then hardship would destroy it easily. But genuine hope points to a reality that does not falter even when we do. A sailor does not trust his own eyes to guide him through a storm. He lifts them to the stars. In the same way, the soul in trial lifts its gaze beyond the shifting sands of circumstance to something eternal. That gaze steadies the heart. That vision keeps the flame alive when everything around seems bent on smothering it. There is something profoundly humbling about hope in dark times, for it teaches us that we are not sufficient in ourselves. We are not the source of light. We are the ones who wait for it, who receive it, who cling to it. And yet in that waiting, a quiet strength is born. For the man who still hopes when the world has given him every reason to despair is already stronger than the storm he endures. His hope is not denial, it is defiance. It is the refusal to let the present darkness define the whole of reality. Hope also has a way of spilling over into the lives of others. A single candle lit in a dark room does not only guide the one who holds it, it offers sight to all who are near. In the same way, a person who holds on to hope amidst hardship becomes a source of courage for those around them. They may not even be aware of the strength they offer, but their quiet endurance, their steady faith, becomes a kind of lighthouse for others wandering in the storm. Thus, hope multiplies. It never remains solitary. To thrive in hard times, then, is not to avoid the shadows, but to carry within us a light they cannot overcome. It does not mean we smile when all is breaking apart, nor that we are untouched by grief. It means that, though we weep, we do not weep without expectation. Though we suffer, we do not suffer without meaning. And though we stumble, we do not stumble without direction. Hope does not remove the trial, but it gives the trial a purpose and a limit. The darkness will not last forever. The night, however long, cannot hold back the dawn. And so the soul that hopes has already begun to thrive, for it has chosen to believe in a reality larger than its suffering. This is why hope endures. It is not the fragile flame we imagined. It is the eternal fire that no wind of adversity can ever extinguish. Strength is a word we often misunderstand. We imagine it to be the absence of weakness, the shining perfection of a life unshaken by struggle. But this is not strength. It is simply ease. True strength is not born where everything is smooth and unchallenged. It is born where resistance presses against us, where obstacles demand endurance, and where hardship requires the soul to stand. Its ground, ease breeds comfort, but it rarely breeds character. Endurance, on the other hand, chisels the human spirit into something lasting and unshakable. Consider the metal in the blacksmith's fire. Left untested, it remains brittle, easily broken. But when exposed to heat, hammered, and folded again and again, it takes on a resilience that cannot be gained any other way. So it is with us. Our trials may feel like blows, our days of sorrow like fire, but beneath them something stronger is being forged. The process is painful, and no one chooses the fire for its own sake. Yet, when the hammering has passed, the soul that endured is not the same as before. It is tempered, sharpened, and ready for purpose. Endurance demands more than a passing effort. Anyone can summon courage for a moment. The harder task is to remain steadfast when the moments stretch into days, weeks, or years. The test of endurance is not found in one great act of bravery, but in the quiet persistence of rising each morning to face what has not yet changed. It is in these repeated acts of choosing not to give up that strength secretly takes root. The one who endures is not the one who never feels weary, but the one who, despite weariness, continues forward. It is tempting to think that ease would serve us better. We often pray for a life without hardship, imagining that peace without resistance would make us happy. But an untested life is like a ship that never leaves the harbor. It may remain safe, but it was not built for safety. It was built for the sea. And a ship that never faces the waves never proves its worth. Likewise, endurance gives us the chance to discover what lies within us, to uncover reserves of courage and resilience we never suspected we had. Without hardship, we would not know the measure of our own strength. Endurance also teaches us patience, and patience refines us in ways speed never could. In times of ease, we rush from one satisfaction to another, restless and ungrateful. But when we are compelled to wait, to struggle, to remain faithful in difficulty, we learn the discipline of steady trust. We come to see that strength is not about conquering everything quickly, but about remaining faithful to the course, even when the finish line is far from sight. And let us not forget that endurance shapes not only ourselves, but those who watch us. Just as one flame can ignite another, so the perseverance of a single life can inspire courage in many others. A weary soul who still presses forward becomes a living testimony that the storm can be endured. Their endurance plants seeds of strength in others, and what began as personal suffering becomes communal courage. In the end, strength is never the prize of ease. Ease may offer comfort, but it leaves us soft and unprepared. Endurance, though hard, gifts us with something lasting, an inner fortitude that the world cannot easily break. And so, when we look back on our trials, we may see that they were not meaningless. They were the very forge in which we became strong. The ease we once longed for would have left us unchanged. The endurance we resisted has made us resilient. That is the paradox of strength. It is never forged in the absence of hardship, but always in its presence. When the storms of life descend, there is a natural impulse to retreat inward, to believe that survival depends upon solitude and self-reliance. Yet it is a curious truth that the human heart was not designed to carry its burdens alone. Hardship, though deeply personal, is not meant to be endured in isolation. In the bleakest hours, it is the hand upon our shoulder, the voice of encouragement, or even the silent presence of one who stays that gives us strength to continue. Community and compassion are not luxuries for times of ease. They are anchors in the storm without which many would be swept away. We often admire the figure of the solitary hero, the one who battles alone and emerges victorious. But such images, while stirring, are deceiving. The truth is that even the strongest among us falter when cut off from others. A soldier on the battlefield fights not only for his own survival, but for the brother beside him. A weary traveler endures the long road more readily when another walks at his side. The companionship of another human being does not remove the storm, but it steadies us against it. Compassion has a strange power of multiplying strength. When you comfort another, you not only ease their burden, but lighten your own. To weep with those who weep, to rejoice even faintly with those who rejoice, is to step outside the prison of self-absorption that suffering so easily builds. Pain whispers, you are alone, forgotten, abandoned. But compassion answers, you are seen, remembered, and cherished. In that reminder, despair loosens its grip, and courage stirs again. Community also reminds us of truths we forget when the storm clouds our vision. Left to ourselves, hardship can shrink our world until we see nothing but the difficulty before us. But in the words and presence of others, our sight is lifted. They remind us of the goodness we can no longer perceive, of the hope we are too weary to hold, and of the strength we do not believe we possess. Often, the very faith we lack is loaned to us by those who stand near, and in time, when their moment of weakness comes, we will return the gift. It is not grand gestures alone that anchor us in storms. Sometimes it is the simplest acts: a meal shared when appetite is gone, a letter written when words are hard to find, a prayer whispered when despair is deep. These small acts carry weight beyond measure because they remind us we are part of something larger than our suffering. A cord of many strands is not easily broken, and the ties of compassion weave us into a strength far greater than our own. There is also humility in receiving the compassion of others. Pride resists, insisting that we must be strong on our own. Yet to accept the help of another is not weakness but wisdom, for it acknowledges the truth that we are made for fellowship. Just as no branch can survive cut off from the tree, so no soul thrives cut off from community. To receive compassion is to admit we are human, dependent, and in need, and in that admission lies a deeper kind of strength. When the storm finally passes, and it always does, what we remember most is not only the severity of the trial, but the faithfulness of those who stood with us in it. The storm may strip much away, but it cannot erase the bonds forged in hardship. Indeed, those bonds often outlast the pain itself, shining brighter precisely because they were tested in darkness. Thus, to thrive in hard times is not to stand alone, but to stand together. Community and compassion do not remove the storm, but they keep us from being lost within it. They are the steady anchors that hold us fast until the seas grow calm again.